Up to $26,000 per employee? They call it the 15-minute refund, but it's not a gimmick. It's for business owners who stuck it out during the pandemic. The Employee Retention Tax Credit, or ERTC. But time is running out to get started. Talk to the experts. JWC Advisors at iHeartTaxRefunds.com. Who are they? CPAs who will keep you on the right side of the IRS. So do it the right way. Go to iHeartTaxRefunds.com. That's iHeartTaxRefunds.com.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Last season, millions tuned into the Betrayal podcast to hear a shocking story of deception. I'm Andrea Gunning, and now we're sharing an all-new story of betrayal. Ashley Litton was helping her husband set up a business Venmo account when she discovered a terrible secret.
I saw a hidden folder, and I opened it. What the hell did I just see?
Listen to Season 2 of Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Greetings, everybody. How are you doing this fine day, afternoon? Well, you know what? It's actually not fine, okay? How are you doing today? That's maybe a better question. But we're all just putting one foot in front of the other these days, right? There's so much going on. But I hope that this podcast, this conversation is able to give you some, relief, some reprieve over all of the chaos that is enveloping us, from our world to the pandemic to the systematic racism. There's just a lot going on. So yes, use this as solace and comfort in the world of independent music, because that world has clearly been upended in so many ways. Well, I'll talk about that more in a minute, but we need to talk about our guest. Our guest is Corey Coffman from Gleemer. And if you have not listened to Gleemer, you are doing yourself a disservice. This is a spectacular band, shoegazy, ethereal, dream pop, whatever you want to call it. It has that vibe. And I fell in love with them. Those records you just listen to, and one song into it, you're like, oh, so I'm going to be listening to this for the rest of my life. That's exactly what Gleemer is to me. And I think that they are, a really, really talented band at what they do. And I'm really, really taken by them. And their newest record, Down Through, is, it's a work of art. I love it. So I had to have Corey on the show because, part of my job here at the podcast is to make sure that you are keyed into good music and good bands that are doing the thing. And they are. They've put out 2 full lengths, and they're a great band. So I had to have Corey on, and that's what we did. But can I ask you for a favor, please? So rate and review the show wherever you're listening to this, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, any of those other platforms that have ratings. Please do that. But the most important thing, spread the word where you can to your friends. Anybody that cares about music, I want to listen to this show. It isn't so much about me trying to I want the biggest music podcast around. No, that's not. I have no illusions of grandeur in regards to that. This show is meant for a very specific group of people, but I want to make sure that those people are hearing it. So yeah, tell your friends, spread it on social media, do what you need to. I would appreciate that. And you can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I am getting a little bit better in responding as of late, but hit me up, because I love to have the dialogue with people, whether it's like them asking me to be on their podcast, whether it's, contributing other ideas in regards to guests, like whatever it is. I love to have that direct communication, because realistically, podcasting is a weird and isolating medium. And when you're able to kind of reach across the barrier and be like, hey, I'm a fan of what you do, and here are some ideas, I love to have that feedback. So anyways, I was noticing that, other countries are, have progressed with this, the battle against the coronavirus in so many different ways. And, I'm seeing, like, I think in Korea, they're able to do some live events, and just seeing live events returning in whatever way, shape, or form they are returning. I know I've obviously seen a lot of like drive-in concerts, and, live streams are aplenty. But just the idea of being, going into a small room and having that communal experience, like, my gosh, I mean, same thing about movies. Like, there's something that is a part of me that misses that greatly. And I know I'm kind of repeating a lot of sentiments that, your friends, other people who are involved in the music community also say. But yeah, I can't wait to get back to that. So, but anyways, here's Corey. It was a great conversation. And like I said, listen to Gleemer, because they are a great band, and you need to be paying attention to them. So here's Corey, and I will talk to you at the end of the episode.
Us being label mates, I was, aware of the band once.
Dude, Taken's sick, by the way.
Thank you, appreciate that.
wait, were you in the band like back in the day?
Yeah, no, this was my my high school project, and then we just, yeah.
Wait, what's your role in the band?
I am the lead screamer, as it were.
Are you for real, bro? I listened through the first, or like most of the first record last night. It's so cool.
It's a lot, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. I fuck
with it. It's got
thanks, man.
Did you like Slint?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, we did not. That was not on our radar as we were writing, but like the guitar stuff, definitely, I can see where you're coming from.
Dude, it's like it had a lot of that vibe to me, and I just like kind of found out and got into that band because of this YouTube documentary. And I was like, oh, this is like hitting some of the same chords for me. And then the newer stuff is like more aggressive in a really cool way, but yeah, it's sick.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so I would like, I mean, I remember when, because I mean, I've known Tom and Jesse since they were like 5 years old.
Wait, really?
Well, yeah, I've known them for. I mean, Tom I met in like the early 2000s, and then Jesse. Jesse obviously used to go to kind of, Taken shows when we were originally playing, but then I signed Stick to Your Guns to a record label I worked at and stuff. And so, yeah, it's crazy.
This is crazy. I had no idea. That's so cool.
Yep, for sure. But, so once they started to, work with you and they were excited about, Gleemer and signing you guys and stuff like that, I was like, oh, this is cool. And I really like the stuff. But it was funny, and I'm sure I'm not the only person to have done this. I always got you guys confused with Glitterer.
Bro.
I know.
He was... I've had this name 5 years before he named that band.
I know. And it's so... I fully attribute it to myself as being like an old guy mistake of just like, oh, Gleemer, Glitterer. It's like, oh, gosh, what's wrong with me?
I'll take it, though. Like, Ned Russin's a G. Like, that's like... pretty. I mean, if anyone's gonna get us mixed up, it's like at least it's like something else that's cool.
That's no, that's actually very true. Where it's like even if people accidentally listen to one or the other, thinking it is the other band, that it's not this like like whatever, like some terrible nu metal band or something like that.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't realize that. But the something that you've kind of mentioned in like previous interviews and previous press that you've done is that you like the ability for people to kind of discover your band, where it's like the idea of whatever you didn't use these words, but I'm using them, just like the over marketing of a band, where it's like you feel it's kind of like forced down your throat. And so you want people to be able to arrive to your music kind of at the quote unquote right time. Do you still kind of feel that way? Do you feel, I guess, different about that, or where does that sit in your head now?
Damn, I mean, I don't know. Like, music discovery is like to me, music is like this. Like, I say this, I think I try to live by it, but music is like this like holy thing, and like I don't like to try to control it. I feel like anytime that I've exerted myself over music, it has turned out poorly. Like I've either written a bad song, or I've helped someone else write a bad song, or I've, and so I feel that like discovery is paramount to the reception of music. I think that like, like I almost only listen to bands based on like who's telling me to listen to them. It's like, oh, this guy, like I fuck with this guy. Like he knows what I like. I'll check this out. And I think that like self-discovery is kind of like another layer of that, where you're like, I like the idea of like feeling like I found a band that like, it's like this snippet in time that like you're like almost getting to peek into something that like isn't yours. And it's like I felt that way about that Slint documentary that I watched recently. I was like, dude, I'm like, this is like these people's lives. And like, I love feeling like it was kind of my discovery, whether or not, it was placed there intentionally by someone else is hard to say. But I like to try to like maintain that like maybe illusion, but like I don't know. I think if people like fuck with us and want to listen and like they find it on their own, I think that's kind of the coolest way to like garner a fan base over time. It's slower, but I don't know. It's kind of tight to me.
Yeah. No, I see exactly what you're saying, because like when you do have this real discovery process, whether it's, like you said, you're just using your friends to be able to recommend music, or, you're just doing random YouTube dives or whatever the case may be. But like, you do feel like you mentioning Slint and having that discovery, like this was probably, I want to say last year for myself personally, there's this ambient artist named William Basinski, and he did dude,
love him.
I felt so like this is a style of music that I, generally pay attention to, and I had never heard of him prior. And then I was like, oh, he did this, this amazing, the Disintegration tapes and whatever.
Yeah.
But I just felt, I was like, for a week, that was like all I could think about. And
yeah.
And to your point, it's like, even though you yourself just discovered Slint, and obviously they are a band that no longer exists, like, but still having that relationship with it, it's, I don't know, it's just, I really like that. You're hitting the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned, where it's just like when you find something and then you just hold on to it, no matter at what point you discovered this band, whether they exist or whether they don't exist. It's just, it's so, it's very intimate.
It invades your world for a time. It becomes like it's like your lens, And like, I think that like music is so like, it's dangerous to look directly at music and to be like, analyze it and like look at it and be like, what is this thing doing for me? What's this hype band sound like? Who do they sound like? Whatever. I think it's like music is music when you use it as something to look through, It's like, oh, like this, I'm driving my car and like this song is playing and I am thinking about this other thing. I'm not thinking about like how much money this band spent on this record or like their upcoming tours, which is, it's funny working in music. You get it's like I have to like try to keep myself in check with that, but I think that like that like lens is like, that's what makes a band such a cool part of your life or whatever, and why we tag like seasons of our lives to different artists, and like why you end up relating to other people about it, I feel. Yeah, no, that's a really, and not knowing you before at all, besides the music that you've put out, like you have this real, and honestly, we've talked for 10 minutes, but you have this real like metaphysical air about you. And I mean that in a compliment, where it's like, it seems like you would have been raised in like, whatever, Northern California and Santa Cruz, and like super in touch with nature and like all of this stuff. And maybe I'm just like, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it sounds like you're really, I guess, in touch with that sort of maybe side of your life. Yeah, I don't know. I think I definitely wasn't raised in Santa Cruz. Right. I went there once. We played a show there once. It was tight. I don't know. I guess I feel like the stuff that we can't see is like the stuff that matters most of the time. So I try to like, and I think most of my discovery has been figuring out that I don't really understand most things and kind of just being okay with that. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I like that's the stuff in the world that's interesting to me, you know, is like why do I feel this way? And like that's sort of what drew me to music in the first place, is just exploring like, I guess like the stuff that I couldn't explain, you know what I mean, with words. And it was like, why, even it was like a kid, it's like I would attribute all of these feelings with like these images in my head and feel like I didn't disregard them, but it was like nobody ever like talked about that. And I was like, oh, like arts and like, well, not even just art, honestly, like anybody can like, I feel like define themselves through whatever they do. Like somebody who like makes boats probably gets the same joy that I get out of making a song. But it's sort of just like, I don't know, just recognizing that part of yourself as a human is real and is like worth diving into, you know, because it's like the one thing that isn't tangible, but I think it's like maybe the most important, you know?
Yeah. Well, because it's incredibly difficult to articulate as well. Like you can talk about a feeling until you're blue in the face, but someone is not going to be able to identify with it unless they've had that feeling in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a communicational barrier that like I'm glad exists, because it forces us to like exert ourselves in other directions, you know? It's like, I don't know, it's cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, kind of focusing on you as a person, like you mentioned, you were not born and raised in Santa Cruz, which I knew that, but you were, so were you born and raised in Colorado, or where did you come up?
Dude, yeah, I'm actually in the house I grew up in right now.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I grew up in Loveland until I was 18, and then I moved to Phoenix for 8 months to do like a audio engineering school. And then I was kind of like the kid around town that recorded, you know, like my friends' bands and played guitar in another band. And then moved to New York for like a couple years to pursue audio engineering, and was just working in studios. And that was where I sort of started writing my own music. And then after, a couple years there, I was like, man, I like Colorado a lot more than New York. And I didn't really want to continue working at the studio that I was at. And so I was like, I'm going to go home and like, you know, get a job and play in my band, because I feel like I've, for the first time in my life, been able to like express myself this way. I loved so much music, and I feel like I came up around a lot of very talented musicians. And that was sort of the reason why I never created anything, was because I was like afraid of getting like, I didn't want to make something for the sake of not being judged. You know what I mean? I think I said that right. I didn't want to be judged based on what I made.
Right. You were you were nervous about putting it out there.
Yeah, because, you know, I came up around, you know, the people I was in bands with were generally like about 5 years older than me, and I was sort of just a guitar player, and I found creativity in engineering, which I love and am finding all new stuff about now in my life. But I didn't feel like I could ever be in my own project, because I didn't want people to like hear me. I didn't want to be like judged, you know, I was afraid of that. And I think moving away, and not to New York in particular, but just for me, like getting away from any community and just having no friends and being like, okay, damn, like, what do I fuck with? Like, nobody cares.
What do I do here? Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, oh yeah, it's like, what do I like? And that was when I started to find like really, I expanded a lot musically at that time. Like my friend Jack, he does all of our album artwork. He's been my best friend since I was like 14. I couldn't say enough good things about him, but when I was living in New York, he was in Colorado, and we had this Dropbox, and we would just share albums with each other. And I remember he sent me Grouper. I don't know if you're familiar with Grouper.
Yep.
And then this band called Have a Nice Life, and they have this album called Death Consciousness from like 2008, I think.
It's such an incredible record.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah. Yeah, it's fucking awesome. But yeah, I had never, like, I guess I had started to get into some more experimental stuff, but a lot of my musicality was grounded in excellent musicians. You know, I really loved like Radiohead and Elliott Smith through high school, and still incredibly formative for me now. But it was almost a bar that was too high, and I started to scratch on like Guided by Voices and Grouper and Have a Nice Life and these different bands like that. I remember finding like Nothing when they like put out their first EP, and I was like, whoa, like I didn't know
this
music
is it.
Could like,
yeah, this is cool. Yeah.
I didn't know I was allowed to like sound bad but still be good, you know? And like I was like, oh, this is like, it's like this means like that song, The Big Gloom, like was my most played song on iTunes for like 4 years. And I was like, dude, like I didn't know I was allowed to like just do literally whatever. Like I was like, okay, I can just make anything as long as I'm paying attention to the emotion of it and how I feel. And so then I was kind of like, damn, like this music sounds like psycho. It sounds like I'm underwater. There's like so many like, just because people are doing whatever. And I was like, maybe that means I can. And so, you know, kind of started to toil with the idea of like writing music just because I felt so like, it's just because I loved it so much.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It was like I want to play too. Like,
right. You had that
kind of thing.
You had, you know, in your head, you were able to get the permission to allow yourself to be, you know, experimental in whatever it is you wanted to do. So I get that.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's like, I think I felt freed from trying to be cool. I think I felt like I could finally like, I get like emotional thinking about it because I felt like, and I try to express this to everyone I am at least close with musically, and I really try to encourage people that I know that don't even really understand music or didn't come up playing music to like try, because it's like, or at least try creativity, because it's not like exclusive, you know. And I think that like coming to that realization that it's not about being cool and it's not about experience. It's about like just being able to like open yourself up to the world and like be a part of this, and like exactly how you are and your tendencies, no matter how bizarre they may be, like are going to be worth something to someone else like that feels like you do, you know? And like sort of like tapping into that I was like, dude, this is like music is like so different than I thought it was when I was like trying to learn like White Stripes songs, you know. This is like
sure,
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No.
And like, you know, that's a whole language too.
Yeah. Right.
And that might even be like the whole point for some people, but it's like I for me it was just always very like, that turning point was kind of like more important than anything I learned, you know, as far as like skills. I think just kind of learning to be open about that.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. How much time in any given week do you spend thinking about yourself or taking care of yourself? If you actually stopped for a moment, you'd probably realize that it is pretty small. And it's so easy to get caught up in helping friends, family, coworkers. But then you end up feeling burnt out, stretched too thin, and that is where therapy comes into play. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I've done it myself, done it with my wife, and I think these things are incredible tools for you to get unstuck from whatever it is that you are feeling stuck with. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's all online. It is designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire, and you get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Trust me in saying that therapy will help you through some of the most difficult parts of your life. I know that for a fact. So find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Ray to get 10% off your first month. Hey, that promo code's my name. That's great. That's betterhelp.com/Ray. Give therapy a try and get unstuck.
Leftovers
Or the DMV, number 97, or house cleaning, or Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Band merch is incredibly important to me. I just ordered a ton of stuff from Rockabilia recently, and I'm excited because it's in transit right now. Got the shipping notifications, all that stuff. You need to use this code. PC100words gets you 15% off your order. Trust me in saying that they will have something for you. I encourage you to go to rockabilia.com, browse their 500,000 items that are available. They've got puzzles, they've got hoodies, they've got shirts, they got posters, whatever you need from a band paraphernalia perspective, they have. It's quick shipping, independently owned, officially licensed band merch. So that means the bands get paid, and it's high quality stuff. You're not seeing one of these, horrible. You wash it once, and then all of a sudden, all the ink from the silk screen is gone, and then you're bummed, and you have a blank T-shirt. And Rockabilia does not roll that way. They are a incredible business. This has been around for 20 plus years, and I love supporting them. I mean, they support the show, but I just love supporting them because they are such a real, tried and true professional business that knows what they are doing, And frankly, there's not very many out there that, are of the same standard as Rockabilia as far as I'm concerned. So visit rockabilia.com, use the code PC100words, 15% off your order. Boom.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's very, it's very insightful about the, progress. Cause usually, people like as they start to, develop their own musical vocabulary that's separate from their parents, you just start to do things like it's very reactive as opposed to like being thoughtful about it. And it isn't until you actually get presented with the idea of creating your own stuff and be like, well, what is it that I want to sound like? And, usually it like when you're younger, it's just like, oh yeah, I want to rip off these 5 bands. And then, it isn't until you get, maybe as you get older, the bands that you want to rip off are more obscure and then you have this, so like maybe that's the thing, but at the same notion, that idea exists, kind of throughout your life where it's just like, oh, now I have the permission to be, like you said, as weird as you want. And I'm gonna guess too that like, as you were growing up in Colorado, because Loveland it's outside Colorado Springs, correct? Or is that's like the closest?
It's closer to Denver. We're like we're an hour north of Denver.
Oh, okay, that's right. I toured through there many times.
There's another Loveland. There's like a Loveland Pass where like everybody goes to ski. But it gets confusing. This is like the flat rural Loveland.
This is the non-ski country one. Okay.
Yeah, it's not like a fancy town.
Right. So you were close enough in proximity. So that's essentially kind of on the way to Wyoming as well.
Yes. Yeah, we're really close to Wyoming actually.
Got it. So then you go visit Taco John's in Cheyenne all the time?
Dude, we got our own Taco John's.
Oh, dang. Dude, that's impressive.
That's funny.
I'm gonna guess that like your upbringing because Loveland, passing through there is just suburban life, obviously with a rural backdrop. So what was your kind of experience, growing up? Like, was your mom and dad in the house, brothers and sisters? What was that like?
Yeah, my childhood was pretty normal. I feel like I was always pretty quiet and in my head, but I feel like that's like literally 60% of the population. But yeah, it was just my parents. They moved here from Missouri. That's where like all my family's from. And then my older sister, and she's 3 years older than me. Yeah, and it was basically just like, pretty drama free for the most part, which is funny because I feel like I write about a lot of drama, but maybe that's because my life wasn't that exciting to me. But it was like, it was cool. I grew up really like around, I had like, a group of like friends, and my house, this basement I'm in right now, is kind of the one where everybody would come over and we'd watch movies and like sort of like, I was in a circle that was very like critical in kind of a bad way, in that we were like almost challenging each other to like be interested in more and more obscure things, you know, which I think fed probably my fear to create. But at the end of the day, it exposed me to a lot. You know, we were trying to watch like, you know, at like 15, trying to watch all of the best movies ever made and like the best records we could find, and like trying to like, I don't know, it was potentially because the town is sort of, I think maybe people in smaller towns feel this way, and people in larger towns probably reciprocate similar feelings just for the rural side of things. But it's like we almost like had like a desire to like see what else was out there, and it was sort of like, I want to explore like as much music as possible, because I feel like I'm from Loveland and Loveland sucks. You know what I mean, to an extent.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was sort of like, how do we push ourselves out of that? Yeah, and that was like, music was kind of just what I ended, like I was really into drawing for like the first half of my life. I just drew like cartoons all the time. And then I like tried to make movies for like years in middle school. I think I don't know why, but I think I just didn't feel like I could ever express myself verbally to people. And so
you got to try these different mediums. Yeah, that's cool.
It was like, what's the medium that I can show this to my dad and be like, this is who I am, Dad. Like, I want you to understand, you know, as opposed to like saying it. Cause that was like, I don't know. Like I said, I was like super, super shy growing up. Like I wouldn't talk to anyone. And so it was kind of like, until like, you know, like 9th grade, I started to like open up a little bit. But yeah, I was always sort of searching for that.
Right. What sort of cartoons? Because I love the notion of like, I mean, I think most kids, like as they start to, you know, figure out that they might have some artistic proclivity in drawing, like, you know, usually you're just drawing your favorite, you know, like, oh, I want to draw Garfield or whatever.
Yeah.
What were you like drawing, and what were you attempting to, you know, create?
Bro, I would just draw like monsters. I drew like
nice.
Just all the craziest creatures, stuff from video games. I draw Master Chief, Star Wars,
great,
Spider-Man.
Okay.
I made a comic book about a cow.
That sounds incredible.
It was like a cow superhero, because I could draw cows. Like I figured out like my recipe for cows,
right?
And I could draw them from multiple angles. So I was like, yo,
yeah, I
have to like. It's funny. My parents actually still have them. They like make no sense. Like looking back at them, I'm like, dude, what was my plot?
Yeah.
But you know, it was just kind of like whatever. I just like,
yeah.
I feel like that was like how I felt like I could be heard, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. And so then, you know, as you started to, you know, like you said, open up a little bit more in high school and stuff like that, I'm going to presume that music started to kind of infiltrate your life at around that time, you know, or maybe a little bit before that. You know, so I guess what was kind of your initial touch points for not only music at large, but kind of like maybe the more independent minded stuff that you obviously are now doing?
Yeah. I don't know. I really got into playing guitar in like 7th grade, because like 7th to 8th grade, because my dad had a laptop from his work that had Audacity on it, which is like a free recording software that I'm pretty sure still exists.
Yep, for sure.
And it was like, he taught me how to play like just power chords. Like I learned like potentially the opposite of what people would say you should do, but like I didn't know how to play like a G chord until I'd been playing guitar for like over a year, because I just wanted to play stuff I thought sounded cool. I was like, I don't care about like that. I wanted to. So I learned how to play a Rise Against song, and I was like, dude, this is like the coolest I've ever felt in my life. And then so I would make like little like loops of myself playing guitar. Like I would write like a little metal riff, and I would just listen to, it was just guitar, and I would listen to that like when I played like Halo and stuff. And I was like, dude, this is so cool. Like,
right.
And so I kind of got into like, you know, I was into like what I feel like 7th and 8th graders are into, at least were into when I was in 7th and 8th grade, which was like Under Oath was probably my favorite band on earth. And then I like transitioned into like classic rock. I saw School of Rock, and I was like, okay, Led Zeppelin's cool now. And then like got all into that, and then like started to transition into more current artists. It's funny, I got really into like Wilco in 9th grade, and started to like, try to push myself to get into new stuff. And like, it sort of just snowballed from there with like the friends that I made because of that interest. And it was like, and then we all just kind of were like, have you heard this? Well, have you heard this? And it sort of like compounded into kind of everything.
Totally. Yeah. It's the self-perpetuating thing where it's just like, okay, this is my metal friend. So he's going to show me Slayer and Sepultura, but then I'm going to show him, these other things that are obviously not that. So no, I love that. I love that.
It's like you're like leveling up. You're trying to like gain as much like XP as possible so you can like know more. It was like, I don't know. It's a funny like teenage thing to do, but it's cool. I'm down.
Yeah. Well, and especially too, there's always that, notion of like, oh, have you heard that band? And then you're like, oh yeah, I totally have. And you totally haven't. And then you have to, and then you're like, wait, damn it, dude, 9 Inch Nails. I've heard of the name, but I don't know. Like, and then you just feel like, and then once you actually look into it and you're like, oh my gosh, I've missed like 14 years and like 16 records. Like you just feel, yeah. But then, then you do the homework and then you act like you're a Trent Reznor super fan. It's cool.
It's funny, man.
Yeah.
I've like tried to, at this point in my life, it's like, dog, I do not know that. Like, I will get into that if you show me where to start.
Yeah.
Like, so like, but it's all timing, and I think it comes back to that discovery thing. And I don't know. It is important to stay open as you grow, though.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. And like you said too, sometimes you might listen to something, quote unquote, too early, and your musical brain is not even ready to comprehend what you're listening to, and you're just like, oh, this stinks. And then 2 years later you're like, oh wait, I was wrong. This
band I suck.
Yeah, totally. I wasn't ready for that.
Dude, like, do you know the band Yuck?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So their first LP is like, they had a different singer for that, and a lot of the songwriting is different. They were kind of a different band, IMO, but like that first record is like probably top 5 albums of all time for me. And I remember specifically my friend Blake in Arizona showing me the last song on that record. It's called Rubber, and they did a live version of that song for like, I think it was for Pitchfork or something, on like a rooftop. This is like 2000. This must have been 2011, and they play it like 20 BPM slower, and it's like 15 minutes long. And I like, it's so funny because he showed this to me and I didn't even register it. And then I showed it to him like a year and a half later. And I was like, bro, do you know this? And he was like, dog, I showed that to you a year and a half ago. And I was like, oh, damn. Like,
whoops. Yeah.
Oops. But that was like one of the most vivid times that's happened to me, because I was like, oh, dang, it really is about like where I'm at, which is funny.
Yep. No, for sure. That's super funny.
I'm excited to tell you about a new release from a band called Avatar coming out on E1 on August 7th. The record is called Hunter Gatherer, so you can, go quickly pre-save that on any, streaming platform of your choice. But the band got keyed into me, and I watched a video. I streamed their music. It was one of those things where I had never heard of them before, frankly. And after kind of getting to know them a little bit, I was like, these dudes are going for it. Like, it's very theatrical. It's heavy. It's got a lot of stuff going on, but I mean that in a good way. Like, let me just sample a little bit of the music for you, and you can kind of, get a feel for it. So here it is. The song is called Silence in the Age of Apes. It's off this upcoming record of theirs. So check it out, and I'll come right back. Pretty crazy, right? Like I said, they just, they throw everything at you. And they're dudes in their mid-20s. Like, they've been doing this for a while, but they have such a clear and concise vision for what they want to do musically. So, again, the band is called Avatar. Their record is called Hunter Gatherer. Comes out August 7th. So pre-save it now. Pre-order it. Do whatever it is that you need to do to support this band. Visit avatarmetal.com for all of that information. Okay? Thank you very much, E1.
And so it sounds like you're, as you started to develop your music vocabulary, and like you mentioned earlier, you were the guy that started to, record all your friends' bands and stuff like that. It sounded like you were always pretty focused on the idea of being, kind of the recording guy, as it were, and, developing your chops there. And then, like, I know that you mentioned previously too that you went to Arizona to do like, you know, sort of an 8-month immersion project into the recording arts. So that I'm going to presume that was like, as you started to develop that, that was kind of your life path, as it were.
Yeah, I think so. I think that recording music has always been more interesting to me, perhaps maybe for only that it's less terrifying than performing. I always felt like if I could record my music and I could control how it sounded, then I could really say what I want to say. And if I was, you know, I don't know. I think that has always just been like the sickest thing ever to me, to be able to make this permanent thing out of nothing that someone can like take and hear it, and it's going to be the same thing I gave them and be like, but they'll be in a totally different place. And like, yeah, I've sort of like that whole side of things is its own like beautiful language to me that couples with the songwriting and performance aspect of everything that I don't know, it's something that I don't think, you know, I engineer full time and produce full time, but the cool thing about it is that it's always going to be something that to some degree eludes me. It's just like beautiful and it's just magic. And like when you get the right people together and like you push really hard and like we make something together, it's like, I don't know, even down to just like the tiniest things. Like I love like turning the tremolo knob on like a Fender Princeton. Like that's like its own like song to me, you know? It's like that shit is like just like, it's so, there's so much gear. There's so many people doing it. There's so many ways to express it. It's just like, it's something that I don't think I'll ever get to the bottom of. And I think the sooner I just like submit to that, the better of an engineer I become, you know? And it's sort of, I don't know, it's just like it's like a lifelong thing to me. It's just a really like that side of everything, regardless of even my own band. It's like that is going to live forever. And I love that. Like, I love just being able to be a part of that, you know?
Sure, yeah, and you're never going to be perfect at it. You'll be competent. Yeah, you'll be competent enough to, you know, get all, you know, turn all the knobs and do all the nuts and bolts stuff. But then, you know, there's never going to be that perfection because there's always going to be all of these elements. But then, you know, sometimes, like you said, you're able to harness it and be like, oh wow, like that was a really cool record for these reasons.
Yeah, and like that perfection in and of itself, I think is as weird as it may sound. It's like perfection is like possible all the time in making a record, as long as you're willing to submit to the record. As long as like I put my ego aside, everybody in the band can put their ego aside, and we can just like, it's like, yo, what is this record like? Where's your voice record? You know, like, what do you want to sound like? Like, and if you can like learn to listen to that, I think like that's how you make stuff that affects people. And it might hit people at the wrong time, and some people might not fuck with it, but like other people are gonna like, it's gonna open the door for them, you know?
Yeah.
And I love that. That's like, it's so like humbling to like be able to, I don't know, just even be around that, you know?
Yeah. No, it's inspiring. I totally get that.
Leftovers or the DMV number 97 or house cleaning. Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Looking for a show where you don't have to look far to see yourself? Welcome to the Professional Homegirl Podcast. I'm your host, Ebony, and every Tuesday, I interview women of color from all walks of life, and all of my guests are anonymous. So you'll hear stories from survivors,
The first shot that I feel, it goes in my face. I got shot in the back of the head as well, but since my wig and the braids under there, the bullet got stuck. Then one of the guys that was shooting at us, he got shot too, so we all ended up at the hospital at the same time. The police, they not putting this all together. Like, this is still unsolved.
To spirituality.
To me, it's really about having a gift from God. You can sense things. This is about helping people. It's not about breaking them down.
And family secrets.
I don't know what's going on in everybody's family. People are a little less likely to talk about it openly.
Listen to the Professional Homegirl Podcast with Ebony every Tuesday. Presented to you by the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Like you mentioned, when you were in New York City and you were putting the ideas together of what obviously Gleemer would become. It's so funny to think about and hear the idea of you being in one of the largest cities in a cultural hub for the entire world, and then you're like, you know what? I can't find any people I'm vibing with. I'm going to move back to Loveland, Colorado. Like that's a weird notion. And I'm sure you understand that, but
it is weird, man. I don't know. I think like I'm glad I did it.
Sure.
I think like my like one of my great friends to this day, his name's Matt Roberts. He was like, he actually, one of the songs on our new record, Take, he actually wrote. Like we kind of collaborated on that back in the day in like 2012. But he's married now. He's not in the band anymore. Has kids. His family's awesome. I'm still like super tight with him. But he was like a huge reason for that. He was, I had sent him some of the very first Gleemer stuff, and he collaborated on it with me and like sort of helped, he was like that encouraging voice to me to be like, yo, dude, like this is sick. Like you can have a band, you can do this. And so I think that I talked with him on the phone all the time when I was in New York, and I made connections there and made some good friends and like worked for some really cool people. And I think it was just sort of like, where the heart is where I wanted to go. And I was like, Matt gets it like more than anyone. So I'd rather go home and like work a normal job and try to write music and express myself with someone that I feel like understands me. And that was like kind of the trump card for me. It was like, well, I could do anything else here. I could keep working in the studio, or like I could try to reset and just pursue this band. And I think that feeling was like enough, to kind of outweigh any of the benefits of staying there,
Sure. Well, like you said, the idea that you already had this real deep connective tissue with the person, and you're just like, well, it's there, and that person's there, so of course I'm going to be there. Like,
yeah.
I don't need to continue to search it out when I already know that it exists somewhere else.
Yeah, and maybe it took me not being there to really know, but I was like, well, maybe that made it even easier, because I was like, well, I'm in New York and I can't even find this here, so
sure.
I might as well go. I guess I realized how rare that was.
I got really lucky that this person I really vibe well with was in my hometown. Like that's great.
It's like it's actually insane. Like, I mean, it's so rare to like, that's such a hard thing to connect with, especially as like a young songwriter. It's very difficult to like open up with anyone. So
Yeah, no, I totally get that. This is more a sort of an observation rather than a specific question per se. But Gleemer is such an interesting thing to me as well, because you've been active since for whatever, close to 10 years that the band has existed in some iteration. But it seems like you were still in this like people that just have found out about you wouldn't maybe have the knowledge of the fact that you've existed for close to 10 years, and like you're this kind of like best kept secret. Yet on the flip side, there are, it's like to get 1 million streams on Spotify is not easy. So it's like you're in this weird world that I can't really honestly wrap my head around, where it's like you're big enough to where people are like clearly fans of what you do, but then there's also this weird discovery process where people are like, Gleemer, like I think I've heard of them, And I don't know. Like I said, it's more of an observation, and I'm sure you have some thoughts in regards to how people kind of I guess attach themselves to your band, because it's weird to be in kind of both of those worlds, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's funny. I like, I like the whole time the first phase of the band was really with Matt, and then second phase of the band, like Anymore and the newest record Down Through, have been with me and Charlie. It's like the goal, has always been just like, I think music's sick. I really like guitars. I really like emotional things, and I'm really drawn to certain melodies, and so I want to I just want to like make more of that, and that was always the point the whole time. I like have a slight aversion, I think that is the negative term. I kind of don't prefer to play live, I really just like to make songs, and that's sort of been there's amazing things about shows, and we've played some like we've been fortunate enough to play some really cool tours with great people, and I've had amazing times doing that. But the center of it all has just been like, like, what do I think is sick right now? Like I feel it was like eating. It was like, I'm kind of borrowing a quote from Mark Kozilek, but like, he said, like, when he wants to write a song, he's just like, it's like he's hungry, and he's just like, oh, I should go get some food. It's like that. It was like that for me, It's kind of just like, oh, like, let's do it now. Let's go. Like, I like doing this.
Sure.
And so the fan base, we've never even really tried to be anything other than like, I don't know. It's like we'll get slated as like a shoegaze band, which I don't, especially now, I don't really think we sound like that. Or whatever people like want to call us, which I think is cool. I think it's fun that we get tossed around in kind of different circles, and but I think that also results in potentially an unclear and odd fan base, because we've kind of grown in this direction that's sort of like, it just is kind of specific to us. It's just, it's me and right now it's me and Charlie, that's kind of who we are. That's kind of what we sound like if you were to put our hearts on a song, and so I think some people, it's like, I don't know, some people really fuck with it, and I think that's amazing. Like I couldn't, like, that's what causes me to encourage everyone else to try to just be themselves and be as honest as possible in what they're making, because there's, regardless of how long it takes, like this has been my project for a really long time, kind of. I mean, not compared to some people, but like, I feel like it, the people will find it eventually if it's real. And some people's favorite record is like still like the first record I made in 2013. And I do not like that music now.
Sure.
But I'll never take it off Bandcamp, because I'm like, dog, that's what I did. That was me right then.
Right.
Like, that's cool.
Yeah. No.
So I don't know. I don't know if that
I know that I know that there's not a clean answer for that, because like I said, there are very rare instances where I'm able to kind of like see both of those things exist alongside of each other, where it's like, you have the feeling of being like this, quote unquote brand new band, but at the same time, there's also people that are, like just so actively engaged with what you're doing. It's just like, wait, what do you mean you haven't heard Gleemer? Like, they've been around forever, idiot. And it's just like,
that was so sick.
Yeah. Right.
I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool to have people that care, I think
yeah,
that's and I like to imagine that those people kind of feel like how I do, and that I hope that the music, and I think that's hopefully what people like about it, is that they feel to some extent understood in their circumstance, and I feel like a lot of people like say our music's really sad, which I there's definitely a lot of melancholy to just how I write naturally, but I like to think that it, at the very end of what people get out of it, I hope is hope. I hope that it's like a connection, and that they don't feel alone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. It's you're putting the art out there to interact with people in a real way, and I get exactly what you're saying.
Cool.
as you started to, once you moved back to Colorado and started to, this started to become more of a band where you'd actually obviously play live and get out there and tour and stuff like that. How were your first experiences with touring? Like, did you, enjoy certain aspects of it? Did you dislike certain aspects of it? Where did you kind of sit with that?
Dog, it's funny. We've been like really lucky in that like our first DIY tour. Luckily, Charlie was in the band at the time. Charlie played and wrote all the bass on Moving Away, which is funny because now he's our drummer and he was our live guitar player for a tour. He writes all the songs with me fully. Like he's so involved. But having him in the band when we first started the tour, Charlie had drummed in like several other bands that had gone on like DIY tours. And obviously for us, like the idea of landing like a actual tour was like not real. It was like that's not ever going to happen. So let's figure out how to make a tour happen for us. Because some people were kind of liking Moving Away. Like I just put it out. I remember like we recorded it in my basement, and then I was like, I'm just going to release this on this date. And everyone was like, okay, cool. And then we put it out, and then some people like liked it that I didn't know. And like some people in Minneapolis was kind of our first city that had like friends in. We were like, dude, there's like kids in Minneapolis that fuck with our band. That's crazy. We should like try to get there and come home. And so luckily Charlie had some contacts. We had some other DIY contacts in Colorado that were so helpful, are still helpful to this day. And basically kind of just booked the whole thing through Facebook. And then, like we're lucky enough to have some kind of sick turnout at like half of the shows. Like I remember we played the Broke House in Minneapolis, rest in peace. That was like, there were like 60 people there. We were like, dude, like not just for us, there were a couple other touring bands and like a popular local at the time. And so it was kind of like, a lot of it was circumstantial, but it was just really lucky to be able to do that. And I think I felt it was just like, this is the season. Like I have to, regardless of like any tensions I might have had about playing live, it was kind of like, this is where it was like the hunger thing. It was like, okay, this is what Gleemer has to do now. So it's kind of, it's cool for the most part. I think like we've been, like I said, really fortunate to tour with some cool bands. And like, we did some DIY runs, we did 5, I think, DIY runs. And just slowly made friends via doing that. And just like, connecting with other people that it's like, if you're doing a DIY tour, you're obviously like not in it for something else. Like you have to, like, clearly you fuck with music. So it's kind of an open place to make a lot of friends.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been cool,
Yeah. Well, and kind of along those same lines, like the notion of, the business aspect of the band, the fact that obviously working with record labels, I mean, even though, you're working with friends at other people's records and, you're managed by a person you trust and like all of that sort of stuff. But, how does the, collision of art and commerce kind of sit in your head?
Dude, TBH, Charlie is like my hero. He is a business major and he freaking has like, saved the band. I think he's like so like on top of like, he registered us as an LLC, like takes care of like tax stuff. And like, I don't know, it's been like, it's nice because I am not, I don't know. I get intimidated when having to deal with that sort of thing. And obviously the band it's not like this is like a super lucrative thing.
Right.
As it's not for most people, but just having to deal with that at all is definitely like a reality of like growing a little bit, even if we literally lose money, there's still money that happened. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It's nice to not, I think am I addressing the question properly?
Yeah.
I think that's like, it's sort of like,
you're like,
the commerce aspect.
I'm not the business guy.
Yeah. It's like something that I feel like is very, I don't know. I feel like I'm just lucky to be around who I'm around. Like Charlie enjoys that. And I'm like, dude, really? Like he made this spreadsheet and was like so proud of it. And I think it's sick, but I would never be in the position to want to do that. So I'm like, very thankful to have help in that area.
Right. Yeah. No, it's good because people definitely need to, kind of understand their own strengths and weaknesses and the roles that they play. Because, bands end up dissolving pretty quickly when you've got two people, vying for that position and being like, oh no,
Dude.
I'm better. It's like, oh geez, man, how about you figure it out? Like it's
totally.
Or the vice versa, where a person that is not good at business in any capacity whatsoever, and then, is trying to run something. It's like, oh no, don't, you're just going to make really bad financial decisions for the band.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a matter of, it's nice to be able to submit, even with like label stuff. It's like, it's cool. Like on this record push, like I'm just like Tom, Jesse. I mean, for the most part, they would probably like say that I can be a pain sometimes, but
Sure.
for the most part, I'm just like, dog, like do what you think makes sense. Like those new, we made these like athletic Gleemer sweatshirts. That was like 100% Jesse's idea. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, let's do it. It's like, it's nice to like, I don't know, maybe get over the fact that you think you're like this genius captain of something and kind of just, rely on the intelligence and strengths of the people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not every idea that comes out of your mouth is going to be golden. So yeah, you should.
No
you
way,
should,
bro.
You should listen to other
I've
people.
written some bad songs. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Luckily we didn't release them because Charlie stopped me. But it's sort of like it comes back to that. It's very like, who you're around, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Two last things I want to hit on before I let you go was the. People are obviously always going to compare bands to other bands. And, like you were talking about just being like, oh yeah, here's this, like Gleemer is this dream pop band or, whatever, shoegaze and like all of the kind of categories. And then the direct comparisons that people, could put on you where it's just like, oh yeah, they kind of sound like Turnover Junior or whatever.
Right.
Do you, I imagine in certain respects, you don't even like consider that whatsoever in regards to obviously your own music writing, but is it one of those things that does it get under your skin at all? Not saying that you think those bands are bad, but does it just be like, well, can't you just listen to us for who we are or whatever?
Yeah, I totally see that. I think it's fun to be compared at the end of the day. It's like it's cool that like we even get tossed around with other bands that are, way more successful than we are. And I think at the end of the day, like as a writer, I definitely like, I've never set out with the intention of like sounding like, we're not like, let's make this type beat, you know what I'm saying? It's sort of been, just us wanting to express ourselves. But that being said, we're not without influence, obviously. And, yeah, I think I try to just be like, like if somebody writes us off for that, if it's a negative thing, if somebody's like, oh, fuck yeah, they sound like this and I love that, that's always cool with me. But if someone's like, oh, they just sound like this and I hate that, then I try to just, sort of put myself in their position and be like, well, I did that thing with Yuck, or I just said it was dumb because I didn't want to pay attention at that time. And maybe they're just approaching it with their door closed, and I think that that's also okay, because maybe in a couple years they'll like us, or maybe they never will, and that's that's fine too.
Yeah.
It's like something to get used to,
Sure. And I mean, obviously from a marketing perspective, people need to be able to draw comparisons in order to be like, oh, you like this band, you'll probably like this band.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always feel bad when I feel like it's like misleading or like more stylish than we are trying to seem. Like, I don't know. It's like we really just set out to make like a rock record that wasn't fashionable almost. Like I really didn't I didn't want to make a record this time that felt like it was hiding behind a style. I was like, let me just write the songs and we'll record them as good as possible with Will, who like fucking God bless, he's the king. That was an amazing experience. And like, I felt like we just got to like make something normal. Like it was like, it's 2 guitars, bass, and me, some harmonies, some percussion that Will played, and then Charlie drumming. And it was like, it's like it was a rock record, and that was kind of what we were trying to do, And I think that the emotion in it is the same as it's always been. The sentiment is very similar, but it was sort of nice to not try to make like a slowcore record or a shoegaze record,
Sure.
or, which we're not. I feel like we're not even really, maybe touching upon some guitar tones, but it's like I've been listening to a lot of like Jeff Buckley and stuff, and I'm like, man, this is just like good shit, like I can just like, it just sounds cool and everything is like normal and good. And that was sort of like, I feel like where my heart was at in making it. It was so, and Charlie too, it was like, let's just try not to be like, not gimmicky, but let's try not to like pick a style and just make what feels natural,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like, let's, I mean, this is going to sound pretty pretentious, but like follow our muse, wherever that may lead us.
Bro, that makes me sound so shitty.
I know.
Just
like I said, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was
I do.
I just wanted to make a normal record.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And so like you mentioned, you kind of, center your life obviously around the band and your recording stuff, but do you basically like record bands from a full-time perspective, or do you have, like a day job, like you work at a bagel shop to kind of make ends meet in between tours and recording bands and stuff like that? Or do you record full-time?
Luckily, for the past couple years, I am full-time, just producing, a band, like generally, well, obviously right now things are like have been a little suspended, but pretty much, since I moved home, did Gleemer, and then did, recording other bands in my spare time, and worked like a warehouse job for 4 years. And then I quit about 2.5 years ago and have just been producing bands since then. Generally people I meet through Gleemer and whatever, we'll have a band out. I've done 3 releases. I mean, most of the stuff I've finished recently is still just waiting to come out, but did a record for a band called Gleemer from Minneapolis. That's like, we took 3 weeks in January and put that all together. And then working with another band from LA called Millie, and a band called Soft Blue Shimmer from LA as well. But like, we've completed 3 releases up. That was like through March. But yeah, pretty much just like pouring. I feel like maybe it's just because I've been doing the band for a long time now, but I feel very like ready to be like paternal in a sense with music. Not that I have myself on on any sort of pedestal, but it's like, I just have like, I get true joy out of helping other people make stuff that goes. Like I want to hear demos and be like, yo, I hear the heart of this. Let's make that heart like as magnificent as possible. And like, that's really where like, pretty much like 90% of my thoughts and effort are these days, is really just like pushing into that. And then when Gleemer stuff happens, it's like this like fruitful little like walk in the garden. And then the rest of the time it's like, let's do it. Like, this is like, I want to make something awesome with these people. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Sorry, kind of a long-winded answer.
No, that's cool. I mean, it's nice to be able to live in a pocket where you can make both things work, and they both feel creative, not only creatively satisfying, but then make sure that you're not destitute. So it's very very cool.
Yeah, it feels like, like in a lot of senses, like with Gleemer, like especially making a record with Will, I've been looking up to him for 7 years. I remember when I first heard Charmer by Tiger's Jaw, and I was like, yo, some guy is making sick records with small bands. I love this guy. And making a record with him and like, getting to like kind of step out of that role and like learn, humble myself and like be like, yo, he rocks. And like, in a lot of senses, Gleemer has like expressed a lot of what I've wanted to say creatively. So like when I get to work with other people, it's just about like, it's not about me at all. It's so much more about like me taking, like being able to be a part of this like younger band, like discovering themselves. And like, that's just like, it's just like a whole other part of like the beauty of it all to me. It's like, dog, like I love grinding through that with like a group that becomes my friends, like that's like, it's just all like, it's fun to like be a part of the family of it,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like too, the, relationships that you develop with, the other artists that you work with is a real thing. Like you're not just doing this as a very kind of transactional relationship. It's like, no, I want to get in here. Like you were saying, I want to hear the demos. I want to build this from the ground up. So it's cool.
We go crazy. I still like text like most people in all of the bands I work with. Like we'll just have like jokes and like it's just they're my friends, you know. It's like we're literally all trying to do the same thing, and so it's like let's just like the family can expand, you know. It's like it's fun to have like to lean into that and to be like open to making friends through that, and like you know like. There's so many people that make such amazing music that I feel like never get a chance to even record something that comes even close to what they deserve. And like, I just really like, I really want to like help that process. You know, I like so many of the records I do, I'm like, dude, like, I'm so glad that I get to hear this in a cool way because like this band deserves the royal treatment and they're so talented and like, I just want to listen to this record, so I'm going to make it as good as I possibly can, you know?
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's like, this is great that I get a front row seat for
dude, that's how it feels. Yeah. It's like so sick. Like, I don't know. It's really like, it's an encouraging thing. And like, it all feeds into the same garden that is all of music, and it helps people, you know, feel connected. And I love that.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Well, Corey, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you letting me get to know you a little bit and nerd out about all this, you know, really, really fun metaphysical stuff.
Bro, thanks, Ray. Yeah, I really appreciate it. This was great.
That was such a fun chat. Corey was, I didn't expect him to be so like, I don't know, Southern California chill bro vibe, but he totally was. And it was great. And I loved it. And yeah, thank you very much, Corey, for coming on the show. And like I said, if you have not checked out Gleemer, please do it because they are such an incredible band. And next week is it's kind of a doozy of an episode for me because this is a figure who has loomed large in my musical upbringing and life. And I was really excited to have a chat with him. Brian McTiernan from bands like Battery. He plays in a band called Be Well right now. He also played in Ashes. He is also a producer extraordinaire, has produced a ton of records that, you know, are just like seminal within our punk and hardcore community. And but Battery was such a huge band for me and still is. Anytime I listen to Battery, I'm just like, oh my gosh, they inspire me in so many different ways. So I had Brian McTiernan on, and we had a gigantic chat. Like, I want to say this episode is probably going to be close to 2.
Attention students, Essex County College is excited to announce the opening of a second brand new campus in West Caldwell, New Jersey this fall. With 2 great campuses in Newark and West Caldwell to choose from, you can receive an affordable education that will prepare you for your future. At our West Caldwell campus, you can earn an associate degree in business administration, accounting, general science, computer science, liberal arts, education, criminal justice, and more. We also offer certificate programs to enhance your career. Plus, you may qualify for free tuition under the New Jersey Community College Opportunity Grant Program. Don't wait any longer to start your future. Classes start on August 30th and registration is now open. To secure your spot, visit essex.edu or call us at 973-877-4477. Register now at essex.edu. Remember, Essex County College has all you need to succeed.
Leftovers or the DMV
number 97
or house cleaning. Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.